Hey, Nation, Harry here. It's a new year, a new decade. So, with the start of 2020, we're back. We're going around the horn with our esteemed analyst, and we're back with Joshua Liberman, who, Joshua, a couple of thoughts before we get into the main topic. But I remember last year about this time, you raised your hand in one of our interviews and you said, over the next year or two, you wanted to do more writing and speaking and that kind of thing. Do you feel 2019, last look at 19, do you feel you worked towards that goal to do more thought leadership stuff?
Sure, I did work and had some successes. I spoke a few more times in the industry that year, and it's leading to potentially some really good stuff this year, or perhaps even international. And anytime you can get somebody to pay you to go speak in another continent, that's nice. So yeah, I
Yes,
had
sir.
some success there, and I am doing more writing. Honestly, the balance that I lack is being able to put just as much effort into growing my own business as into traveling and truthfully schmoozing in the community. So I need to keep a balance. But yeah, it is gathering steam.
Absolutely. Well, hey, the topic this month, and we usually do this with you, is sort of an event review. You go to a lot of events, and so you've just come back from Frankly MSP Live in Santa Barbara, the inaugural conference from Auvik. What's the story other than that's a very nice seaside town that's a little challenging to get to?
Yeah, I flew in through LAX, which led to a 2.5 hour drive. I was happy or lucky enough to get picked up by a friend out of Orange County, or actually out of Hermosa Beach, who picked me up and took me all the way up there. And the way back, we ended up in a $200 Uber ride or Lyft ride simply because of timing. Yeah, it's a little challenging to get to. You can fly in and out of Santa Barbara pretty well from some locations and not at all from others, such as Albuquerque. It ended up being a third as costly and half as lengthy to go through LAX for us. The show was very interesting. I'm lucky enough to have been at 2 or 3 recent first shows ever.
Mhm.
IT Glue a couple years ago comes to mind, and this one and another out there. The show went very well. I mean, perhaps flawlessly. I certainly didn't notice any hiccups to speak of. The attendance was good for a first show, roughly like IT Glue. My numbers aren't official, but that felt like about 150 to 160 attendees,
Yeah.
another 40 plus vendors, vendor staff, and I don't know how many Auvik staff, but there were over 200 people there, it seemed, and that's awful good for a first show. On top of which, it's small enough to make for an event where people really get to mingle and spend time. And the speakers were quite good. I saw maybe a half a dozen keynotes or presentations. And interacted with panels and sat down with stuff. But what was more unique was the amount of time they devoted to peer groups, or peering, I should say, not groups, but allowing people to network in a human way, which I think is lacking at almost all of the bigger shows. It is absolutely lacking at the biggest shows. I mean, IT Nation.
It is. It is.
Whatever that's called nowadays. And even DattoCon, it's become very difficult to do that. So in a smaller show, if you pay attention to this need, it's very well served. And they did. They one or two things that were truly unique. Were unique so far that I had seen what they called a brain trust lounge, where people signed up to sit down with some of their headliners and just have a back and forth Q&A. There was an hour of that with about 8 or 10 of their speakers available to have those discussions. I haven't seen that before, or at least so formalized. That was really good. And there was just generally more emphasis on giving people the ability to spend one-on-one time with both presenters and amongst themselves. It was really only a 1.5 day show, but again, that's a really good first day show and first year show count.
Yep.
There was and like everyone, there was a welcoming reception and a big dinner the second day, and it was really great. It was also highly international. I interacted with people that I knew and didn't know from Australia, New Zealand, UK, which I will call Europe for the time being, and various other attendees from Europe, and a brace of Canadians, which is going to happen anytime you have a California show in the winter. So it was really pretty good. I have
Okay.
I found no serious shortcomings at all.
Final question. If you had to give me an idea of the agenda, and the reason I'm asking is I did not see an overwhelming amount of press coverage, so I'm not sure. I was not invited. I mean, that's fine, but sometimes some of my colleagues in the media are invited, and I wasn't seeing post-ups from that. So my question is this. Was it 50% technical, 50% business in terms of the content? What was the nature of the content?
Well, no, there was far less tech than that, and there was very little focus on their own product line. As a matter of fact, you almost had to seek that out, which I think is probably to their credit. They certainly weren't treating it like a sales meeting, but it was largely about business growth, service delivery, tools, automation, scalability, really not very much tech, although the vendors, and there were roughly 18 to 20 vendors in there, were the place to go get that information. That wasn't the focus of the show by any means. And I can't go without mentioning the venue. It was the Ritz-Carlton Santa Barbara, which is a phenomenal place unless you're trying to, buy a sandwich for less than 26 bucks. But it truly was, an amazing venue. And it's a Marriott property, so I lucked out. They upgraded us. We got right on the ocean, so I had a photography field day there for part of the time. It was really, really great. My biggest takeaway from that show was that they didn't hawk themselves. Their keynotes were Mike Michalowicz and arguably Tiffany Bova, I guess, was keynote. And at the very end, Nigel Moore of the Tech Tribe from Australia, outside of Sydney. Mike Michalowicz was always entertaining. And Nigel Moore, who, to the best of my knowledge, was delivering his first ever keynote on an open stage to a group of people any bigger than a handful, was outstanding. He gave a great long-form story of his struggles personally and in business and how he turned things around. And it was harrowing, actually. When I hear people that have struggled that much, and I don't mean in life, but in their business, I realized that my struggles are pretty minor. So it was great. And I would say that the speakers are what made it exceptional. The networking contributed, and the venue kind of sealed the deal.
All right, and we'll leave on this. Do they intend to do it again next year? Did you get a sense of this show will repeat?
Well, yes, I did from the show, and going to their website because I wanted to send them a funny photo of their Auvik bear on the beach. I noticed that there's a splash on the website that says, "Watch this space for 2021 details." So I'm going to go out on a limb and say, yeah, they plan to do it again.
All right, boy, you risk taker, you. Hey, Joshua, thanks for your time as always. We'll catch you next month. And hey, a little surprise, I think we can do a couple of in-person segments in Albuquerque, New Mexico later this spring. So looking forward to trying to bring that together with you. Have a super month, my friend. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Harry. Bye-bye.